Hey people, once again, I welcome you back to Caroline's Online Academy. We're learning small concepts that are involved in accounting for share capital. And so far, we've learned a lot of things. And in the last video, we learned calls in advance and how to account for it. Now, in this video, I'm going to be teaching something which is very important from examination point of view, and it is called as pro rata allotment. Now, this is something that is relevant when there is oversubscription in the company. Oversubscription. What do you mean by oversubscription, my dear children? When the number of applications received by the company is more than the number of shares offered by the company. For instance, if the company invites applications for issue of 1 lakh shares, and if the company receives any number of shares above 1 lakh, maybe 1 lakh 1,000 or 1 lakh 5,000 or 1 lakh and 1 share or 1 lakh and 20,000 shares, then we say that that is a situation of oversubscription. Now, the company cannot allot more than what it is offered because, according to the prospectus that it is offered to the subscribers, it is clearly mentioned that it is only allotting 1 lakh shares. Am I right, my dear children? And therefore, even if the company receives more number of applications, it cannot allot more than the number of shares offered by the public. So, number of shares offered for subscription by the company to the public. So, what can the company do? The company can go ahead and reject the excess applications and allot shares to only the two applicants of 1 lakh shares. Now, how can the company reject, and on what basis can the company reject? There is no rule as such as to how the company is supposed to reject. It should not, the Companies Act does not mention that it should be on first come, first serve basis or any other basis. The Companies Act says that the company at its discretion can reject any application that it wants to reject. But that wouldn't be easy, right? Because how can you decide whose application to be rejected and whose application you're not supposed to reject? So instead of that, the company, instead of rejecting anyone's application, can go ahead and do a pro rata allotment. Now, pro rata is a word that has Latin origin, which means according to the proportion in which according to the proportion. Okay. So the company can allot shares according to the proportion in which the different subscribers have applied for the shares. Let me explain you with an example. Assume the company is offering 10,000 shares for subscription, and assume there are two people. A has applied for 9,000 shares, and there is another person B who has applied for 6,000 shares. So the total number of applications received by the company here is 15,000, my dear children. Now, can the company go ahead and allot 15,000 shares in a situation where it is only offering 10,000 shares for subscription? That is not possible. Am I right? The company can only allot 10,000 shares as it is promised to public. So what can the company do? It can reject a certain number of shares of A and reject a certain number of applications of A and certain number of applications of B, and allot only that many shares as to A and B in such a manner that the total number of shares allotted remains 10,000. For instance, it can allot, or it can just allot the total number of shares applied for by A, that is 9,000, and only allot 1,000 shares to B against the 6,000 applications and reject as 5,000 applications. Or it can allot 5,000 shares to A and 5,000 shares to B. Or it can allot 8,000 shares to A and 2,000 shares to B. It can do it in any manner that it feels deemed right. But what the company can also do is it can make a pro rata allotment. That is, it can allot shares in the proportion in which the subscribers have applied for the shares. For instance, in this case, the ratio of number of applications made by A to the number of applications received by the company is 9/15, or it is uh, 9,000 divided by 15,000. Simplified, it becomes 9/15, and this can be the proportion that can form the basis for the number of shares that has to be allotted to A. Now, if you cancel this, you can see A gets 6,000 shares. Likewise, if you apply the same proportion here, the proportion of number of the ratio of number of application made by B to the total number of application is 6 by 15. And if you multiply with the total number of shares, you will get the number of shares allotted to B. 6 is 2 times 3, and this is 2000. So you get 4,000. The total number of shares allotted in total will still be 10,000. So basically, we are not rejecting anyone's application. We are rejecting the applications of everyone. As when you look at it, like we are rejecting some applications of A and some applications of B. But at the same time, we are not rejecting anyone's application entirely. We are not giving some shares to A and we are also giving some shares to B, but we are giving it in a proportion. Okay, we are giving it in the proportion in which these people actually subscribe for the shares, applied for the shares. The proportion in which they applied for the share is 9,000 is to 6,000. And if you simplify it, it turns out to be 3:2. We are dividing the available shares with the company in the proportion in which each applicant has applied for the shares. Understood or not? Now, this, my dear children, is called pro rata allotment, and this plays a major role in companies allotting shares to applicants in the case of oversubscription. Now, my dear children, how does it change accounting for share capital? How does it affect accounting for share capital? Now, when assume A has applied for 9,000 shares and we have allotted 5,000 shares to him, which means that 4,000 of his applications are in excess, the extra applications made by him. And if we refund the application money, then there is no problem. But immediately after refunding the application money, what do? We tell A to pay the allotment. Now, does it make any sense to us, any sense to anyone, to give the money back to A and then also ask him again to pay the allotment money? That doesn't make sense to him. Make sense, right? So what do we do here? We tell A that, see A, you applied for 9,000 shares, but we are only allotting 5,000 shares to you. So we are supposed to refund to you the application money that you paid along with the 4,000 applications that you made. However, we are not going to refund it to you. You have to pay us allotment money, right? We will set off whatever application money you paid to us against the allotment money due, and if there is any excess that you have to pay, that alone you got to pay. Okay. So what we do in pro rata allotment is, as we are not rejecting anyone's share outright, we are allotting some shares to everyone, right? So everyone will have some excess application money available against them. What is excess application money? The application money that they paid on the extra applications that they made. What are extra applications? The number of shares applied for them minus the total number of shares allotted to them will give the number of applications made by them which are in extra. Whatever application money they had paid in along with that extra application is called the excess application money. Now, this excess application money is available for every applicant in this company which is made pro rata allotment, because everybody who has applied for shares have got some shares, which means but nobody has got the entire amount of shares as compared to the number of applications made by them. Nobody has got the total number of shares that they've applied for, but everybody have got some shares, which means everybody have got some extra applications against their name. And everybody has got some excess application money. Now, this excess application money can be refunded directly to them. That is one way to go. Just refund the money to them and then tell them to pay the allotment money themselves. Or what the company can do is keep the excess application money with the company and tell them that, you have applied for 9,000, but I've allotted only 5,000 shares to you, which means that I have the 4,000 excess application money that you paid me. What I'm going to do is, you have to pay me the allotment money next, right? So I will directly use this excess application money for allotment. And if there is any excess beyond that, an allotment use, you can pay only that. So the case of excess application money comes into play whenever there is pro rata allotment. Understood or not, my dear children? I hope I have made sense with respect to what pro rata allotment is. Let me go ahead and solve some problems. The first thing that we got to learn while doing pro rata allotment is how to calculate. We need to learn how to calculate the number of applications made by a shareholder from the number of shares allotted to him in a pro rata allotment, and the number of shares allotted to a particular person from the number of applications made by him. In this case, for instance, the total number of applications that the company received is 15,000, and the total number of shares allotted is 10,000. Assume in the question they've given that A has applied for 9,000 shares, and they want you to find out the number of shares allotted to A. Applications are given, and they want you to find the total number of shares allotted to A if pro rata allotment has been made. Now we got to find out how to do this. Okay, there are many ways of doing it. One way would be to follow the formula. The formula is total applications divided by total shares will give, should be proportionate to A's applications by A's shares if pro rata allotment has been made. So in using this formula and substituting the numbers, we can find the total number of shares allotted to A. For instance, the total number of applications received by the company in this case of pro rata allotment is 15,000, and the total number of shares allotted by the company is 10,000. Am I right? And A's applications we know as given in the question is 9,000. And the number of shares allotted, we do not know. That is what we go to find. So we're going to keep it as X. Now solving this, X will go here. So X is equal to 9,000 multiplied by 10,000. And this 15,000 will come here. So 15,000. So we cancel. This is 2 times, this is 3 times, and this is 3,000. So the number of shares allotted to A we find is 6,000, and that is what we already found. Am I right or not, my dear children? When we make prorate allotment, we had already found earlier that A was allotted 6,000 shares if it is allotted on a proportionate basis. Am I right? So that is what we're going to see. I have a question here for you that you can solve. Let me read the question. Type 10. Let me keep this inside here and take the keyboard now for the question. You see, XII Limited issued 1 lakh shares of rupees 100 each. The company received 1 lakh 30,000 applications. So XII Limited has applied for, invited applications for 1 lakh shares, but it received 1 lakh 30,000 applications. Find the number of shares allotted to Kavya if she is applied for 3,900 shares. They given that if pro rata allotment has been made, that part is missing in the question. When pro rata allotment is made, find the number of shares allotted to Kavya if she had applied for 3,900 shares. So we got to find the number of shares allotted to Kavya, then she has applied for 3,900 shares. What do we do? We can use the formula, substitute, and get it done. Am I right, my dear children? So let's do that. Yeah. So according to what is the formula, my dear children? It is total application divided by total shares is equal to Kavya's application divided by Kavya's shares. The total application is how much, my dear children? It is 1 lakh 30 as given in the question. So 1 lakh 30 divided by total shares, how many, my dear children? 1 lakh is equal to Kavya's application. Kavya's application is how much? 3,900. It's given in the question. Kavya's shares is X. So now we got to cancel this. X is equal to 3,900 multiplied by 1 lakh divided by 1 lakh 30,000. So 4 zeros get cancelled. 13 is 3 times. So 3 followed by 3 zeros is 3,000 shares. So Kavya has been allotted 3,000 shares. Now we also have another question here, my dear children. The question is, find the number of applications made by Mukund if he was allotted 2,000 shares. So we got to find the number of applications of Mukund now. So again, going by the formula, it is 1 lakh 30,000 divided by 1 lakh shares is equal to Mukund's application by Mukund shares. Do we have the number of Mukund's application? We do not have that. So that will be X divided by number of shares allotted to Mukund is 2,000, my children. So what is X? X is equal to 1 lakh 30,000 divided by 1 lakh into 2,000. This 2,000 goes here. So now we just cancel it. Gone. So that is 13 into 200, which is 2,600 shares. Understood or not, my dear children? Now, there is also another way to solve this without using the formula. It's very simple. I mean, it is just a derivation of the formula. You can also use the logic and solve it, right? Understood. So let me go ahead and do that also for you. Now, in the The other way you can solve it is, now they've given the total number of applications made by Kavya in the first question, right? So what do? We multiply and write the total applications. Sorry. Whatever is given, we multiply and write. So for Kavya, they've given 3,900. This 3,900 is the total application. So if total applications has been given, in the denominator, we write the total applications. And what do we have to find? The number of shares allotted to Kavya. So in the numerator, we'll write the total number of shares. And then we cancel. 300 into 10 is 3,000. Again, we get the same answer. Again, if you do it for Mukund, they're given the total shares allotted to Mukund, right? So in denominator, what are we supposed to write? Are we supposed to write the total applications or the total shares? If total shares have been given in the question, we write the total shares in the denominator and total applications in the numerator to find out the number of applications made by that particular shareholder. So you cancel this and you cancel this. 200 into 13 is 2,600 applications. Again, you get the same answer, my dear children. So either you can just write the formula and substitute it, or you can follow this method that I just taught you, or you can go ahead and find something else, whatever it is. It is just proportion, ratio and proportion, simple mathematics, and you should be able to solve this problem. This is very, very important, my dear children. It's asked as 1 mark questions in exam. It is asked, sometimes you might have to do this calculation to find the number of shares allotted to a shareholder based on the number of applications made by him and vice versa in a 6 mark problem. So this is something very important, pro rata allotment. Understood or not, my dear children? Pro rata allotment also gives rise to another headache called excess application money. Excess application money. The situation of excess application money arises because we are not rejecting anyone's shares outright. We are not rejecting anyone's applications outright. We are not saying that, okay, I'm going to allot to A and I'm not going to allot to B, so I'm rejecting all of B shares. We're not doing that. We are allotting some shares to everyone, but we're not allotting the total number of shares asked by them. Am I right or not, my dear children? They are allotting lesser number of shares than the number of shares applied for by them, which means that everyone has made some extra application. If everyone has made some extra application, they would have paid some extra money, right? Along with every application, they pay money, application money. So that extra money received by the company is called as excess application money. The company has many ways of going about on how to deal with that excess application money. They can just refund the excess application money, or they can go ahead and use that excess application money against the allotment money due. That is, they can tell the shareholder that you've applied for a certain number of shares, they've given you only lesser number of shares. So we have some excess application money that you have paid us. Either you can, what we are going to do now is you got to pay us allotment money, right? We'll set it off against that allotment money and use that excess application money. We'll adjust that excess application money that you paid against the allotment money that you have to pay us. So that makes more sense, right? And if I have to pay you 10 rupees and then you have to pay me 12 rupees, I would rather say that, see, I have to pay you 10 and you have to pay me 12, right? So I'll just set off against that 12, the 10 I have to pay you. So you only go ahead and pay me 2 rupees. That makes more sense instead of me giving you 10 rupees in your hand and again asking you to pay me 12 rupees. So you just going to return the 10 rupees and the extra 2 rupees that you're supposed to pay. So that doesn't make sense, right? So that excess application money comes into play whenever pro rata allotment happens. And that, my dear children, will actually become your headache when you're solving the 6 mark problem. But you don't have to worry about that. We'll teach you how to solve those questions with the pro rata allotment and excess application money, how to go about doing it. We have various illustrations that will help you do it. And we also have solved a lot of previous year questions in the playlist and of previous year playlist, previous year board examination question playlist. So you can also go ahead and refer to that if you're running out of time, if you don't have time to understand the concepts and all that. You can directly look at the previous year playlist to understand how the previous year questions have been solved. Pretty much straightforward and simple, my dear children, once you understand the whole thing. I hope I have explained it to you properly. In case I haven't, please do leave a comment with your doubts and I'll again try to explain it in a much better manner. And with this, we have come to the end of this video. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. I don't have to tell you again and again, when you like or share or comment, it gives us a lot of motivation, encouragement to do more for you. And hopefully, we will do more for you. Thank you so much. You people have fun and see you in the next